Welcome back to Flash Philosophy. Today's story is about a king who decided to go hunting in the forest with some of his best men. The king and his men prepared and set out into the forest to go on a great hunt. But once the hunt was over, they realized they were kind of lost in the forest and they could not, for the life of them, figure out how to get out. Eventually, as they were looking for their way out of the forest, they came upon an old blind man who was sitting and meditating on a rock. The first soldier approached the old man and said, "Hey, old man, show us how to get out of this forest." And the blind old man sat there, totally unfazed by this rude soldier. And he said, "I'm just a blind old man. I wouldn't know." So the soldier went back, and a man of even higher rank came and approached the blind man. And he turned to the blind man and he said, "Hey, blind man, help us get out of this forest, will ya?" And the blind man sat there still and he said, "Hey, I'm just an old blind man. How can I possibly lead you out of this forest?" And so each of these soldiers is reporting back to the king exactly what they said and exactly what the blind man said back. Until finally the king decides that he was gonna relieve himself of his throne and walk over to the blind man himself. Now you see, the king is a very smart man and he thinks he sees what's going on here. So he goes over to the blind man and he sits down on his knees and he says, "Oh great Baba, you old wise man, I am but a king, but me and my men are lost in this forest. And if you could, would you please help us find our way home?" And the blind man, recognizing the king by his humility, says, "Ah, king, I've been waiting for you, because only someone as humble as you, privileged enough to call themselves king." And he guides them out of the forest. And the lesson here is kind of twofold, right? One part is that your stature really doesn't matter. An old blind man can still be the reason that a king can make it out of the forest. He can still be the reason a king survived. But secondly, and more importantly here, the old blind man is making a point, because the soldiers were all rude one by one, but based on their station, he kind of expected them to be rude. The truth is that the most kingly, the most royal behavior, the best of us, are those who exude humility, who are humble, even to an old blind man who's meditating in the forest. Our titles and our clothing are no more worthy of respect than how rude we are or how commanding we are to one another. Real respect comes from a place of humility. So Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And remember, you're gonna do great today.